commission on second commission meeting on the Western Passenger Rail Commission. I appreciate all of you taking your time to come out here today. Very excited to see a well-represented commission here. We're just going to take care of a few housekeeping matters and dive right in. We're here to listen today and really get as much feedback as we can to inform our report. I'm joined here by my co-chair, Bill Strauss, who's going to have some remarks in a minute. I did just want to say at the outset, we're very excited to welcome Senator Ann Goby to the commission. Senator, thank you. I look forward to your service here. And yeah, pop it up, Ann. Why not? And also, I want to give a thanks to former Senator Eric Lesser for agreeing to stay on to continue to provide his expertise. Obviously, so much experience in this space. So we appreciate you staying on as a non-voting member, but a member that will help us guide through the process. So we appreciate you taking that time as well, Eric. With that, I'm excited to hear from all of you, and I will turn it over to my co-chair, Bill Strauss.
Thank you, and of course, apologies are in order. No excuse, but it ended up being a 3-hour drive today, and which reminds us that Massachusetts is not as small as some people think. But it's great to be here. As my co-chair has said, this is our second hearing. We were in the Berkshires for the first one. We have 4 more public hearings to go through, and I think we started the last hearing, but I think it's good that each of these, both for the commission members and the public, to remind us why we're here, because I think people, as I've been involved in the issue in my role in the legislature, people have different images and different concepts of what this passenger issue means. So if you'll indulge me, I'll just read from one part of the it was in section 60 of our bond bill, transportation bond bill last session, where because of the context of different public comments, different expectations as to where this rail issue for Western Massachusetts was going, with the help of all of our colleagues in the House and Senate from this part of the state, we came up with certainly some bond authorization expected to have been available for the next administration, of course, but also this group. And so I'll just read this. There shall be a commission to investigate and receive public testimony concerning public entities now in existence or that may be created by statute, with the ability to design, permit, construct, operate, and maintain passenger rail service that meets the standards of at least one of the final alternatives set forth in the East-West Passenger Rail Study final report issued by MassDOT in January 2021. And if I could just expand on that. Certainly what we learned in the Berkshire hearing is that not everyone has the same view of even what that language might mean. And so to be honest, I no longer use, unless I have to read the statute, the term East-West rail. This is really about Western Mass passenger rail. And so whether your axis is north-south, east-west, or diagonally, or anything in between, the field is open, so to speak. And that's the purpose of the commission, and that's the purpose of the number of the hearings, and that they're regionally diverse, is that no one should be constrained in their conceptual thinking as to simply east-west. There may be passenger rail issues that are brought up that look at other approaches or other parts, and passenger rail is not the same as commuter rail. And so, again, the usual terminology within the field should not constrain the thinking either of the commission or the public. If these hearings generate further input, that's the idea. The hearings are not the only place that the commission receives input. So that said, I also wanted to recognize Senator Goby, who, and believe me, this is high praise, is always a rep in my book, because we used to serve together in the House, and I have respect for senators, but those that were reps, like my co-chair, have a special place. But we really do get along. So with that, I'll turn it back to my co-chair. It's nice to see people today. And again, I'm sorry I was late.
Thank you, Chair Strauss. And with that, I think we're just going to do brief introductions from the members of the commission that are here present and also joining us remotely. Senator Comerford, I don't know if you want to put you on the spot.
I'm
Who you are?
happy to be on the spot. Everyone, good morning. Joe Comerford. I represent the Hampshire Franklin Worcester District in Western Massachusetts. That's 25 cities and towns in the 3 Western counties. Happy to be here.
Hey, everybody, I'm State Representative Natalie Blay. I represent the First Franklin District, which is 18 communities in Franklin, Western Franklin.
Hi, I'm Meredith Schlesinger. I'm the Rail and Transit Administrator at MassDOT. And will be State Senator for Worcester, Hampshire, which is 22 cities and towns.
And I'm Paul Lundberg. I'm from Gloucester, but I have a background in railroad management, including passenger and commuter rail.
Morning, everyone. My name is Mike Nolder. I'm the director of the UMass Transportation Center.
Good morning, Hayes Morrison, representing Secretary PMDOT of the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. I'm Leah Robbins. I'm here on behalf of the Metro West Regional Collaborative, which is 9 communities on the western edge of the MAPC region. And this is Miriam, who's here for her very first hearing. Thank you.
My name is Senator Adam Gomez. I represent the Hampton District, Springfield and Chicopee. Yeah, I'm just happy to be here. But I'm just waiting to listen to this testimony.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Lindsay Sabadosa. I'm the state representative for the First Hampshire District, which is the city of Northampton and 8 other communities in Western Hampshire.
I am Linda Dunleavy from the Franklin Regional Council of Governments. Welcome to Franklin County. Just some housekeeping. Public restrooms are right outside the doors. You'll find them. Thanks for making the journey out, everyone.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Matusco, the Executive Director of the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission.
Good morning. I'm Janet Pierce, Executive Director of the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission in Worcester County. We serve the city of Worcester and 39 surrounding communities and government.
Good morning. I'm former State Senator Eric Lutzer here in my capacity, but I say to continue to help out.
Good morning, Jason Ballas, Executive Director of the 495 Metro West Partnership. We are a regional economic development organization serving 36 cities and towns along the 495 corridor.
Good morning, I'm Kim Robinson. I'm the executive director of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and we are the regional planning agency for both Camden and Kansas County. And we have 43 cities and towns.
Thank you for the folks that are joining us remotely. It's maybe disorganized, but want to just jump in and introduce yourself. It's Rep. Williams. Hey, bud.
Good morning. Thank you guys for making the trip out here to the 413. My name is Bud Williams. I represent the 11th Hampton District in Springfield, Massachusetts.
I guess, Mike, if you want to. I can only see.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Mike Muller, Executive Director of Commuter Rail for the MBTA.
Thank you, Mike. Looks like we have someone from Rep. Smol's office, James.
Good morning, everyone. James Doran. I work for Rep. Smola. He is at a Ways and Means meeting today at the State House. He represents the First Hampton District.
Thank you. Anybody else? I just am not sure how many folks we have joining us up there. Just jump right in if you're on.
Is there anyone else on? No.
All right, thank you. With that, I'll turn it back to my House Chair, Bill Strauss.
Thank you. Again, we're honored to have representation from our congressional delegation from Senator Markey's office. I don't know if you wanted to speak again. You signed up. I think it's Kristen.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see you around. Absolutely. Sure.
Thank you all for being out here in Western Mass today. We appreciate you making the trip. My name is Kristen Ellico. I'm Senator Markey's Western Mass Regional Director. And we'll also be covering Central Mass coming up soon here. So I'm reading a statement from Senator Markey. We thank the Western Massachusetts Passenger Rail Commission for exploring the myriad opportunities for passenger rail proposals in the region. We must ensure that we are building a rail system that works for all Massachusetts constituents and one that includes East-West Rail, Northern Tier, and the Berkshire-Housatonic line. Passenger rail is essential for a strong economy, clean environment, and thriving workforce. Studies consistently show that expanding passenger rail improves mobility, enhances safety, promotes economic development, generates new jobs, and helps protect the environment. Cities like Pittsfield and Greenfield and Springfield will be the crossroads for all of the activity that will arise when we help connect our transportation systems to the Northeast. Every $1 invested in public transportation generates $4 in economic returns, and every $1 billion invested in public transportation supports and creates more than 50,000 jobs. Simply put, investing in passenger rail is one of the smartest, most economical choices we could make. High performance passenger rail services will enhance transportation capacity, travel times, reliability, and efficiency. These projects will also pay special attention to historically and persistently underconnected and unconnected communities. We encourage a comprehensive and regional network of affordable, safe, and climate-friendly transportation options. With sufficient resources, we can make sure that Western Massachusetts is at the hub of a new regional rail network. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from members of the commission? And before I move on, I was remiss in not thanking the Secretary's office for the technical assistance. We've come to take it for granted, but we do have the ability, whether for people who can't make it physically here, not only commission members, but for the public to be watching this live stream. And that requires quite a bit of technical help, and MassDOT and the Secretary's office have been great in helping us along the way with the hearings that we've had and will be having. Was there anyone else? I'm just going on the basis of the signing sheet from on behalf of any of the other members of the congressional delegation. So,
I read my statement last meeting, so I'll leave it at that.
thank you, and our greetings to the congressman. First or next to sign up, I have Joe Curlin. If you want to address the commission members, thank you, Mr. Curlin.
Hi, I'm so glad that you're all here and involved in this project. I've been interested in better passenger rail for many, many years. I'm Joe Curlin. I'm a former select board member from Coleraine, and currently the Coleraine delegate to the FRTA advisory board. So, and I was a teacher of special needs children for many years. And one thing that we had as a principle where I worked was design for success. And when we're designing a passenger rail or commuter rail or whatever kind of system it is, we want to design it for success. And what do we need for success? We need convenience, we need connectivity, we need frequency. We need to be able to make it attractive for people to use. Now, if you drive down Route 2 to Boston, it's obvious why this is useful. But how do we get people out of their cars onto the trains? We have to make it attractive for their use. So one of the things that I think of is I would love to be able to hop on a train and go to Boston. But sometimes I need to hop on a train and just get to Athol. The more city pairs that we have, the more useful this is. We want it to be useful not only for us in Western Mass to get to Boston. We want it to be useful for people in Boston to come out here. Go to Berkshire East, go to the Clark Art Museum. Go to Mass MoCA. So how do we make it convenient for people from Boston to come to these places? We need connectivity, we need local transit to be able to get from the train station to all of these places that people want to go. So thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the commission? Thank you, Mr. Curlin, for being here today. Next to sign up, Andrea Freeman. I don't know if I got that right.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for everyone for being here. My name is Andrea Freeman, and I'm with the Public Health Institute of Western Massachusetts. We're based in Springfield. I live in Northampton. We encourage you to consider aspects of public health when it comes to choosing an entity to create and oversee the passenger rail program in Western Massachusetts. We work with people all over Western Mass to compile community health needs assessments and improvement plans, so we know how important transportation options are for everyone. Therefore, we ask that the entity in charge of the Western Mass passenger rail be one that's steeped in the concepts of health equity and the social determinants of health. We looked at health impact assessments, or HIAs, for rail projects around the country, and have identified at least 4 areas that are important to public health and health equity. So we encourage you to select or create a public entity. I wish I had one simple recommendation on what that entity would be, but we don't. But we ask that you select or create a public entity that will intentionally address all these important aspects of life, since they impact access to education and retaining jobs. And there's really 4 areas that we were looking at. The gentleman before me mentioned one of them being affordability. A few dollars can tip the scale on what's affordable for people living on tight budgets. The rail needs to be, the fare for the rail needs to be equitable, and equitable does not mean equal. So there needs to be ways to figure out how to, what we want an entity that is mindful of the fact that fares can be different rates for different people, given their needs. The Mass Department of Transportation has traditionally measured public transportation success by how much money is collected from passengers, that being the fare box recovery ratio. We see that as not a great measure of success, especially when the administrative cost to collect fares is often quite high. We want an entity overseeing the Western Mass passenger rail to measure success by transporting as many people as possible, as safely and efficiently as possible. And to that end, there can be an external monitoring system for ongoing improvements. The second area is accessibility. To be really accessible, we need excellent communications and marketing. They will be key to make sure that people all over the region know that they can take advantage of passenger rail service in the region. We want that entity overseeing these community assets to embrace the diversity of the region, and to engage and to eagerly provide by a multilingual signage, and be creative and eager, wanting to get the word out to everyone so that they know that they can affordably ride the train. So, thirdly, air quality. Air quality on board a diesel train is more polluted than on a busy street. So we want the entity overseeing the passenger rail system to engage the Pioneer Valley Air Quality Network to install monitors and report out air quality metrics. And then also to reduce pollution, we also want the entity in charge to have the vision and the resources to become something other than diesel powered. whether that be battery cell or hydrogen fuel cell powered trains. And lastly, design matters as well, the design of stations and the crossing. We work on entity overseeing East West Rail, work closely with the municipalities, with the regional transit authorities and with the regional planning association. They could create stations that have safe access for pedestrians, for cyclists, for wheelchair users, for bus riders, and to reduce any hazards of rail crossing. So the social determinants of health are greatly, all of our social determinants of health are greatly influenced by the investments of design and the build out of the infrastructure or lack thereof. We want the entity overseeing Western Mass Passenger Rail to be thinking of these 4 issues, including engaging Western Mass residents, community organizations. Thank you for considering that.
Thank you. Very helpful. I was wondering, sometimes we get good and bad examples from elsewhere around the country. To either side of that, are there places, given the work that you've done, that you would direct us to in terms of, I guess, fidelity to the areas of public health you've identified or other metrics?
Sure.
Yeah, it's a reverse.
Yes, no, thank you for asking. I'd be happy to share with you the list of impact assessments that we did look at. Some of them were from Maricopa County in Arizona, somewhere in the Baltimore Washington corridor. One was in Sydney, Australia, if anybody needs a field trip. Let's see, I'm trying to think, looking at Hamilton, Ontario, as well, so we can go outside the US.
So that would just lead me to say and point out to anyone watching, we take things in writing as well. So if you want to take the opportunity to follow up with something like that, that would be great. For
Absolutely.
committee members. Any questions? Yes, Senator.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Andrea, and thanks to the Public Health Institute for your work on this and many other things in our region. I had a question about the external monitoring system that you talked about. Could you just elaborate a little bit more? I'm just interested in the picture that you all would have. Is it a community advisory board? Is it surveys, focus groups? What have you seen that have been the most effective in terms of holding a governance system accountable, right? I think that's what you're talking about.
Sure. And I would need to refer this, I would ask to have you talk more directly with our director of our Pioneer Valley Healthy Air Network. But this is a partnership that's been funded through EPA dollars, through Attorney General Office dollars, where we literally have monitors that are on buildings that are outside, measuring outdoor air quality up and down the Pioneer Valley, and some go as far as out to Athol, actually, or they will be shortly. They will be installed farther east in the Pioneer Valley. And it provides for real time. You can go online at pvhealthyair.org and you can see real time air quality up and down the region. And so if there were to be air monitors placed at rail stations, I think that would be, a helpful place to start. And by just having the data, having real time data is the first place to start to be able to hold, to be able to measure what the impacts are.
Understood. I think I heard you say that this was about sort of a public ownership. I get the healthy air piece, and that's exceedingly important what you're doing. But I wondered if any of the models suggested ways for the public to hold the governance structures accountable and, give input on the quality of service, the affordability, just what you're talking about.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Well, and I think like the regional transit authorities have advisory boards, and while I think there's only 1 or 2 seats on each RTA advisory board, I think there is a way for the Western Mass Passenger Authority to have a more robust representation of community residents on advising them as part of the decision-making process. I think that would be an excellent way to start. And I think it has to do with, if you've got a committee of 20 people, you don't just want one or two resident riders. I mean, the power structure ends up being pretty awkward there. But you want to have at least, you know, a decent handful of people who are resident riders and users of the service to be able to provide a real firsthand feedback.
Super.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
But I have more.
That's it.
I appreciate you lifting the air quality issue. That's certainly something that we've heard a lot about on the transportation committee, and as we work the climate change legislation that we just passed into law. You mentioned connectivity, and as we're looking at rail, it feels like there needs to be an investment in our RTAs as well to be able to make those connections. Which in turn, I think would get more cars off of our roads and help with that air quality issue. I was just wondering if you could speak to that and what we need really to ensure that those connections are successful. And we're being conscious of that and what this entity could do to ensure that is.
Yeah, absolutely. The connectivity from the regional transit authorities to the regional rail authority, whatever it's going to be called. I mean, it's almost as if could there be one big Western Mass transportation coordinated effort to coordinate, because so many people will be thinking about getting to train stops from hopefully something other than an individual car. And whether that's a fixed bus route or increasingly, we need additional resources in Western Mass, particularly for micro transit. And so our regional transit authorities need the resources that a lot of the eastern, you know, the central and the eastern Mass RTAs already have to be able to have public transportation to the train station. We need this 7 days a week. We need this in the evenings, and that's not the case in some of the RTAs in Western Mass. So if I had my dream, and this is where I'm taking up my organization, I share this with everybody, but you know, that there would be at least, if not a statewide transportation plan, that there would at least be a Western Mass transportation plan and Western Mass transportation system network that oversees everything from microtransit to fixed bus routes to rail.
Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate you sticking around.
I think you're in that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, right. Anyone else on the commission with questions for the witness? All right. Thank you, and, oh, I'm sorry.
That's fine. It's more of a comment that I think your testimony is so really important, especially when it comes to the connectivity of the different types of transportation, when it comes to RTAs, to trains. Because we know that individuals that have no access to a PVTA bus line, that necessarily some of the stops have been getting shorter, and they've been taking away some of it because of resources. You know, in my city, we advocated to keep some of the stops, and obviously getting down to Union Station, once the train comes, and commuter train or passenger train, then some people are going to be inevitably left walking because some of the RTAs aren't at the table when we're creating this type of conversation. So I just want to say it was compelling, and you're right, spot on. If this is going to work, it has to work in conjunction.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question or comment? You're free. Thank you. I did want to, before going to the next witness, acknowledge a new colleague in the legislature. Aaron Saunders is here, representing the 7th Hampden District, new to office. We can indulge you if you like. I don't know if you wanted to add any thoughts, Representative.
Sure. Yeah, Western Massachusetts is so well represented in this commission. There's nothing I can add.
You have a long future. Well stated. Thank you, Rep, and we'll talk later. Now, I did also fail to mention that because of the technical help that we've gotten from MassDOT here, as part of the live streaming, we can take questions online. We do have one person who signed up, and for those, it depends on your Zoom or your meeting skills. If you do want to be recognized, we'll get the word and you raise your hand like you do on many of these calls. And we'll recognize you as somebody interested with a question. In the meantime, though, we do have one online witness, I'm told at the moment, Scarlett Lamont. If you're here, you'll be plugged in.
Okay.
Are you there?
Hello?
If you just identify yourself and present your input to the commission.
Hi, my name is Scarlett Lamoth. You can hear me, correct?
Yes, we can.
Okay, all right. Well, hello, I'm from Palmer, Massachusetts, and I'm part of the Palmer Rail Steering Committee for the train stop in Palmer. I've been an advocate for the train to stop at the Palmer Union Station. I'd say, I don't know, forever. My father's worked on getting the train to stop there since 1987. And I've been involved with Senator Eric Lesser, Senator Ann Goby as well. We've held events at the Palmer Union Station. And I'm just here representing Palmer, that it's not forgotten. And I would like to extend an invitation to the commission to have their next meeting at the Palmer Union Station to get the full effect and idea of the future that Palmer has.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Lamont? Yeah, Senator Goby.
Just a very quick comment. Scarlett and her family have worked with Senator Lesser and I for many years, and great advocates. And I second her suggestion about having, it's a fantastic place to have a meeting, and you would have an opportunity to see the trains go by, not stop, but see them go by. We would like them to stop someday. So anyway, that's all I have to say, Mr. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Anyone else?
Mr. Chair, I'll just add a second to that. It's a great location also.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're equally motivated. Did you have anything more, Ms. Lamont? And certainly, and I'll just reemphasize, we have the ability to accept written statements, documents, any materials that anyone thinks would be useful and helpful to the commission.
Yeah, no, I do have, I have many materials. I wasn't able to make it out there today due to the weather and so forth, so it just didn't work in my favor. But you know, I have signatures. We have renderings of the details of the future platforms in our downtown district, and you know, the impact it would have. There's been studies done by UMass as well in regards to the ridership and so forth, the impact on our community, the surrounding communities, their input as well. And like the gentleman that first spoke, the future connectivity, not just of east-west, but, you know, north and south up to Burlington, Vermont, down to New London, Connecticut. You know, yes, this is about west-east rail, but, you know, the future of extending, you know, across, you know, north-south and so forth. But, you know, first you got to build the big one and then we'll go from there. But yes.
Okay, well, thank you. And appreciate your participating today and the future contributions that clearly we can expect from you and people in Palmer. At this point, until I see anything else, we don't have any other witnesses, but I would say, because there's been, questions asked within the commission about where we go from here. And so I was, as I indicated, our authorizing language in last year's legislation made clear that we have to have at a minimum 6 of the public hearings. And for those to have value, it's and the co-chair and I were talking about this. We don't want to too quickly go into specific conclusions or what specifics the commission may come up with in terms of its charge. We do want to have that hearing process play out so that we get the benefit of as much input as possible. But at this point, and again, the co-chair and I have talked about it, we're clearly well into our second public hearing, and it may be an appropriate time if commission members want to begin to, don't have to, but if commission members want to begin to talk about what are a number of different issues that already have been revealed in a sense, which is a governance question, what an authority, what a non-authority would look like. Are there existing parts of the state government that would fill the mandate? But then also more specifically in terms of service. And just going off, I'll add my own editorial comment. I'm totally responsible for it. But the last witness mentioned something about, build the big thing first. As has been seen quite recently with other significant capital projects elsewhere in the Commonwealth, specifically turnpike work within the city of Boston, the bridges to the Cape. In order to think about major capital funding for such projects, it's clear that projects have to be well advanced. So if there's a takeaway, and so I now invite other members of the commission, it's well thought out, designed plans that benefit from a consensus for those who benefit and use them, that make the best applications clearly at the federal level and certainly at the state level as well, and in my experience. So it's not so much funding that's key here as knowing what you're after, what you're about. So with that extremely editorial take, I would invite commission members, because I'm not from your region. So there has to be regional and local thoughts that are generated first and foremost. So why don't I won't forget you, but see if members of the commission want to step in. You don't have to, as I said, but you're here for a reason. Yeah.
Well, I think that what we've learned at the first 2 hearings is that the residents of Western Mass believe that passenger rail could be transformative to our economy, to our quality of life, et cetera. And I agree with you that as we think about the operation and expansion and governance of rail, we should do so thoughtfully and with a master plan in mind, so that we aren't just picking and not thinking about what is the impact of this for our future. And so for me, the governance model and the whatever we choose for a governance model, it should be charged with creating a master comprehensive plan and thinking about the impact for all of Massachusetts, for all areas, in a thoughtful, coordinated, financially sustainable way. Not sure that I said anything, but that's what I'd like. That's my dream.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Well, then we'll go back, because now the audience is engaged. This woman first, and then I'll call on the gentleman toward the rear.
I'm actually on the list. I crossed my name off.
Are you Peggy?
Peggy, yeah,
Oh,
Peggy
okay.
Davis.
I took the cross out to heart. I'm sorry. So
So I thought you would say everything, but I.
But
I-
we didn't, Joe.
More things.
I relied on her for thing, but I didn't.
and just for the record, I apologize. I shouldn't have just called you Peggy. I have you signed in as Peggy Davis.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
I'm sorry.
the questions about, examples brought some to mind that I'd like to share. We take trains when we can, and what stands out most in my mind is a trip we took to Seattle, got off the train at Glacier National Park. Had arranged to stay at a motel, and the motel manager picked us up at the train station, took us to the motel, took us shopping for groceries, because they had a kitchen thing there. And then in the next morning, took us to the entrance to the park. And in the park, they have buses that do this big loop road. And you can get off and on the buses wherever you wish, to different spots, different trails, etc. And it's a road that I would not want to drive on. There's some slopes right next to it. And it was such a creative way of, a sensible way of reducing road traffic. And enabling people to just relax and enjoy in a way that you couldn't before. I guess the missing link is that need for the motel manager to show us around, but it worked. And so we were there for a couple of days, and then we went on to Seattle. No car needed. So that was great. And I don't know exactly how that could work here, but I could see vans that would go from Shelburne Falls to Berkshire East and out farther and into Greenfield, and so some kind of small transportation opportunities. Another place is Toronto, where this was years ago, I don't know what it's like now, but they had two subways, that one north-south and one east-west. And then trains that went into the subway station and then out again. So, and whenever you arrived on the train, there was a bus waiting, and then it took you out to your farther location. And another experience was trying to organize a trip that was partly train, and then the rest would need to be bus. And the only bus was a private company that did not wait for the train if it was late. And so it just didn't work. So that kind of coordination with trains is very important. And the other thing I'd mention is our daughter was in Boston for a few years, and so we would drive to Wachusett and take the train from there to go in and visit. But it's an hour and a half. Is it an hour and a half? Yeah, an hour and a half drive from Colerain to Wachusett. So that's a lot of gas, a lot of driving, a lot of wear and tear on, to do that. But we really did appreciate that train, especially when it got to Wachusett, because the parking is really easy to access. And I just think in general, it would be a real economic boon. And it seems to me that there should be somebody from Berkshire East here. No question, and then people from the museums farther out. It's just things like there's no question in my mind that they would all benefit. And finally, I would say, having driven for 10 years from Colerain to Athol once a week for work, I would say that reducing traffic on Route 2 can only be good. And there are too many accidents on Route 2. In the fall, local residents can hardly get onto Route 2 to get from one place to another. And it just seems like a lot of waste, and there's so much benefit that we could derive. And I have been using the Valley Flyer to go to New York to spend time with elderly relatives, and that has been just wonderful. I've so appreciated that. It really made it possible just to drive to Greenfield, not to have to go to Springfield. What a difference. It just makes it all doable, and I can go more frequently. It's just great. So all those things are supporting the idea of coordinated mass transit and that involves different modalities, but all coordinated. I think that's just really important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, did you want to speak also, sir? Sure, please come forward. Just identify yourself and.
Right,
Thank you.
I'm Gregory Cox. I'm from Holly, which is up there. Up where the 15 inches of snow is. I'm Fire chief in Holly, and former selectman and former finance committee member. I worked for the Mass Forest Alliance for a time. I'm not here to talk about any of those. Back in the early 2000s, I served on a legislative working group aimed at changing the current use laws, chapter 61 A/B. And as legislative working groups go, we met in Boston or Westboro every 2 weeks over 2 legislative sessions for 4 years, which meant that I got up at 6 in the morning to be down there hopefully for 9, and sometimes it was more like 10. You all know what the traffic is like on the turnpike going to Boston. The same problem as this for us going to, if you go down Route 2 and you go to Alewife, you want to take a thing. The problem is there's not enough parking at Alewife unless you're there really early, and those from Western Mass, of course, can't be there as early as people from Eastern Mass. So then you're out scrounging, trying to find a place you can legally park, so your car is not full before you go in. Anyone who has work that takes you to Boston has the same problem. You're spending 2-3 hours each way in transit, which you're going to do no matter what. Those are hours when you're not productive. You know what I mean? If you try and be productive, and you see people all the time on the turnpike looking at their phones at the fire chief, that's crazy. But you can't blame them. That's so much of your working day tied up. Then you go to a 2-hour meeting, you got the same problem back. It can work differently. My brother-in-law is a lobbyist in New York. He lives just outside of Albany, which is where the state capitol is. But this is New York, so he has to go and meet with clients in New York City every week. He does not drive to New York City. He goes across the river to Rensselaer, takes the train south. They have Wi-Fi, his cell phone works, he works all the way to New York City. He has a productive day before he gets to the city. Then he goes to meetings in the city, he does the same thing in reverse. About 3 or 4 times a month, he has to go meet with clients out from Western New York, Rochester, Buffalo, that sort of thing. He gets on a train, goes out there. He's not beating his car to death. He's not endangering people driving, trying to answer calls on his phone. And he's able to be much more productive. Think of how many people who work for companies that have business in Boston who are doing this. You see them every day if you drive on the turnpike, on their phones, because they can't give up a whole day to go to a 2-hour meeting. You know, I was so glad when the legislative working group finally came up with something that was acceptable by after 4 years. They could actually go to the legislature. But this is why it's really important to think of the economic cost. It's not just the dollars of running the train, it's the dollars wasted in people's time and wasted actually in them endangering other people because they're trying to work, but they have to go to meetings in Boston. You know, the center of Massachusetts is actually on the edge. And when you live out here, you see this all the time. So that's an economic issue. You know, I figured out the cost of driving to Boston, you know, which, you know, my organization paid for it because that was important. But if you think about it right now, the IRS rate per mile is 62 cents. So if it's only 100 miles, down, 100 miles back, that's $130 that business is paying just in mileage. Then you have tolls. Then you got to park in Boston. You know, which is a huge challenge, as I described it for deal life. Then you got the T. I still have Charlie. Then you haven't measured the time that people are spending. And for a business, they're paying probably $400 a day to send a person to a meeting. Because they're not doing other things, and they can't do other things. At least they wrote on the training, and they could use their lap, folks are here, and their cell phone safely, then they could be much more productive. And if they're more productive, the state is more. You know, having run a business, every day counts. You know, I also speak to productivity, connectivity, because it's a ways to Boston, but Vermont is 10 miles out. When you're down in Springfield, Connecticut is 10 miles that way. If we want to have east-west rail work, or west-east rail, then you need to draw in passengers from each of those places, and they need to be able to come out from those places. Right now, there's one train that goes from Boston west. It leaves Boston at 1 in the afternoon, Springfield around 3:20 at the time. It goes up to Albany, Pittsfield and Albany. The train backs at 5 something, which means that you have any sort of business in Boston, not aimed at anyone from out here going down and back. You know, I'm not talking about commuting, I'm just saying be able to go down and back, otherwise you gotta have a hotel room to do anything in Boston. And I was in Boston for over the weekend, 2 weekends ago. I went to the UMass game at Fenway Park. We got a hotel room and all that. My brother-in-law gave us tickets thinking he was being benevolent. It cost us only about $800. Figure it out.
I have a brother like that.
Well, he's an avid hockey fan. I am too. We go out and see for
What?
that's fine, but the connectivity matters. Right now, the Amtrak train from Boston, there's an Amtrak service through Greenfield here that goes north-south. And there's the Vermonter that runs north-south, goes from Washington DC all the way up northern Vermont. You would think that Amtrak would line up a schedule so that a train coming west from Boston, given they have no trains to Vermont, would meet the train going north to Vermont. The way it works, the train going north to Vermont leaves Springfield about 10 minutes before the train coming from Boston goes. So the idea, I guess, is that you're going to wait in Springfield for a day to go to Vermont. The way I know it's going to. So, and I grew up down in the valley. Those are all things to consider. Designing service. I agree, it needs to be designed. You know, when you fly somewhere, flight is just part of the thing. You have to get to your hotel, you know, you have to be able to get to wherever you're meeting. I mean, you know, so, but hotels line that up. You create the thing, hotels will have an interest in helping line this up. But so does FERDA or PVTA or that sort of thing. My son took the train out of Albany. I drove him to Albany Sunday morning. And went to Buffalo. Got out there, you know, as the Bills were losing and the snow was falling. And then we came back. I go back out there and whatnot, because unfortunately, as it currently is, there's no convenient way of getting him on a train here. The train west to Buffalo starts at 3:30 in the afternoon, which means it's in Buffalo. At about 10 at night, my sister-in-law is not going to pick up someone at a train at 10 at night. So, so we drove to Albany, and it's only 2 hours from Albany. We drove back, and the snow came an hour after we got back. So, thank you for doing this. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else then? Anything else online? No one. Okay, that's
Can I just make one brief comment?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for allowing this and inviting the commissioners to talk with each other at this stage. It's quite wonderful. You know, I wanted to build off what Linda Dunleavy said earlier, which is it's clear that in Western Massachusetts, when you're at a forum like this, or we have also a Northern Tier study, and I want to thank MassDOT for that, that there is this, and that's happening now in a parallel process. There's really just a tremendous excitement and a belief in Western Mass that rail, regional rail, passenger rail, as you said, I think very well in your early comments, is going to benefit our region. But I wanted to just raise up an article that some of us shared when it happened, which is the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston President Susan Collins, and perhaps the chairs saw this piece. Susan Collins was speaking about, what it's really going to take for New England economies to rebound from the pandemic. And one of the things that President Collins said was, it's absolutely going to be imperative that we invest in rural economies. Because, she was making a lot of connections between the housing shortages in more urban areas, the labor shortages across different New England states. And there's this untapped, she was speaking, I think, beautifully to the untapped resource of rural economies, and really needing in this pretty significantly precipice moment coming out of the pandemic to throw down for rural economies. And so I was thinking about the ways in which any kind of governance entity that we create has to also strive for regional equity. So whether it's a standalone entity or whether it's connected to something statewide, we have to allow it, I think, to be equitably funded, equitably focused, equitably structured, so that the Commonwealth sees not only the benefit for Western Mass, because we see it in Western Mass, but the state also can recognize the benefit of unlocking these really pretty untapped rural economies and rural workforce. And we can unlock, and this was stated in the Berkshire hearing, housing potential for people in more crowded eastern areas that are looking to live someplace with great quality of life, but they just need some help getting back and forth to work. And one of the things that we talk about here a lot in Western Mass, and we're certainly very proud of it, is our quality of life and our beautiful schools and our great local communities. We also, happen to steward a lot of the state's forests, right? We steward certainly Boston's drinking water, right? The Quabbin 4 towns were taken so that we could have sustainable water, and our farms are out here. And so it does feel like, and of course, we saw how important they were during the pandemic in terms of food security. So it does feel like while the benefit will be mutual, and we are hearing from lots of experts that we actually need that mutual benefit, that there is an opportunity for us to look at a kind of good for Western Massachusetts that is a long time coming. I think a lot of us out here would say, and I think we'll see it returned many times if we're able to structure something that's truly transformative in the way that we hope it will be. And I wanted to double down on Andrea's comments and also Linda's comments in terms of true connectivity here, whether it's micro transit, because big buses can't get up to Bernardston and Leiden on the kind of, where fewer people live, but certainly micro transit can zip around. And certainly we have a commitment to bikes and pedestrians here as well. So figuring out that kind of real interconnectivity, I think, will be, as part of this governance structure, will be really important as well. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. Any other members of the commission want to weigh in? Obviously,
If I could, I would just like to second that, because I think, you have opened this up to being a Western Mass governance structure. And I guess, is there any opportunity to even open it up a little bit more with this connectivity issue? That we are able to connect up with the RTA in a little bit better way and get, some other ways to get this micro transit, because I think that's a very key element, and I think we should expand our thinking about that as we go forward.
Well, I just add my own thoughts. The RTAs are fabulous entities because they're locally derived and governed. And as somebody who's not from the Boston area, these are similar issues to what we have south of the city. So the RTAs, by definition, have a role in how any rail service is connected for the public that uses them. And the traditional buses obviously don't work in all cases. The notion of, or what we traditionally rely on with fixed routes is just different for the way the public travels around these days. So we are trying to overlay a rail issue with, frankly, I don't know how many different RTAs are conceivably involved in this discussion, but it's a lot. But that is something that the RTAs obviously are going to be tracking. And I did use the word governance a couple of times. One of the nice things about the RTAs is that the governance comes from the local officials. I will say it's something that historically some prior state administrations have not liked. They like to make these calls from Boston, and so the RTAs don't always, for those of you who may have experience with this, RTA's relationship with at least prior mass dots, not all of them, have been strained at times. And so that's something that I don't expect will happen under the new administration. So, but thank you. Again, I don't know whether people were expecting to walk into an actual discussion or just receiving public input today, but the co-chair and I thought it's a good time to start having people, even with 4 public hearings yet to go, begin to think about endpoints, or where are we going with this effort. So anyone else? Well, I'll go down to Gloucester.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
They still have fish there, right?
There are fish, yes. Yes,
Not as
there
many
are
as New Bedford, but.
And there's a blue economy moving there too as well. But I just wanted to make a comment about the work of this commission and your concept of it being more than just east-west, which is absolutely correct. But the legislation talks about, creating a public entity that not only can run trains and get the money to run trains and all that sort of thing, but design what the service is. And I think Ms. Freeman, who spoke today about some of the qualities of what transportation is all about, we on this commission get to take that part of the equation and the part of running trains and combine them in some way that's going to be an entity that actually gets trains to do something that's really important. So I think that this commission's got a very unique opportunity.
Well said.
That's it.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
I
That's
just wanna
right.
follow up something that you said that was really.
Dangerous.
You talked about the RTAs and their importance, certainly in our regions in terms of their service to our constituents and that local control. And I think that one of the things that we as a commission have to think about when we're thinking about how to structure a governing body is how do we ensure that local control? And we don't, I think that there's a feeling, certainly from what I've heard from constituents, that there's a fear that this entity will be swallowed up by some organization in the Boston area that will not be dedicated to the people of West Massachusetts. And so I just want to, I hope that as we're considering this, we can be thinking about that local contribution, ensuring that our constituents' voices are heard in this process, and that whatever the body is that we develop is firmly rooted in what's best for Western Massachusetts, so that we don't lose that control. We're not swallowed up by some other entity in that. And I think then we will see something.
Thank you, Brad. Anyone else? Turn it back over to my co-chair.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I don't want to repeat too much of what has already been said. I think during Freeman's comments, he referenced, local participation in buying and all that, and that's been echoed by a number of the commission members as well. And I think certainly the goal of the commission is to hear from all stakeholders. We've been very pleased to have an active federal delegation at the hearings, as well as our colleagues who may not be sitting here today, but continue to weigh in. And just as importantly, coming as a former city councilor, a local official, recognizing that we want to hear from the folks at the ground level. And in this case, it's not just a handful of municipalities. It's a very big area in many local bodies of government, but also organizations. So I guess kind of as an ask to the folks here, we do encourage people to weigh in. If there are people in your network that may not have known about this or may not have felt comfortable coming, please have them send their information. It is valuable. It's not going to end up in a folder somewhere. We're reviewing all this carefully, as our staff are as well. So please, if you could help us solicit, more testimony as well as people engaging in the process, that would be tremendously helpful as we move forward. And I think if there's no more comments from the commissioners and no one from the audience, let's say a motion to adjourn. I don't know how formal we are. So moved and seconded. All right, the commission meeting is adjourned. We'll be in touch with future dates soon. And thank you everyone for coming here today.
Thank you.
That's not reason. That's not why.